Hello, everyone. Welcome to our latest edition of the Doula Dialogues. As always, I'm so excited to see you here and thank you for joining us. Special time this morning. We're so excited. Mika had a wonderful idea and she just shared that she got this idea in the shower because all great ideas come in the shower. But we were wondering what we should talk about with you today on the Doula Dialogues. And she said, why don't we get one of our clients to come and talk about their experience birthing during the time of COVID. So I'm so happy. Welcome to Jessica Gaulin. Welcome.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Have a brand new baby who is a COVID baby born in the time of COVID. And he's born on April 9th.
9th, yes, that's it.
Right. So really right at the beginning, a few weeks into all of the different changes that we've seen since the coronavirus took place. So today, we're just going to launch in. I want to hear about how Jessica's, how that all played out for you in your birth. Your relationship with your birth plan that got shot all of a sudden, and how this changed with Mika. So welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Very excited. So we met you a long time ago, last year.
Yeah.
Mika, when did you start working with Jessica?
October 2019.
2019. Doesn't that seem like so long ago? Oh my
Different
God.
era.
Like so long ago. And you came to one of our open houses. We have an open house, and I remember that. You came with your spouse, Jerry. And you came looking just to see what we were all about. And you had already heard about doulas, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, so I, even before I got pregnant, I was already, sold on the idea of partnering with a doula. My mom actually had a doula when she gave birth to my brother, and she talked about getting that support so positively. And so for me, it was a no-brainer that I would, work with a doula. The only question was, who am I going to be working with? And so I had heard of you guys through Jenny, who teaches yoga. And so I love the idea of, being able to mingle with you guys and sort of see who was a good fit, because I had talked with my partner about what we were looking for. And so we had sort of like clear points of what we wanted in a doula. And so that's sort of what guided my decision. So that's why I was there that day to find a doula to work with.
Oh, wonderful. And so happy you were taking classes with Jenny B. Jenny B is our Rock the Cradle yoga teacher who works out of NADA and our postpartum doula. So that's wonderful, wonderful. And so you bonded well with Mika, or connected well with Mika. And as usual, the earlier you start working with a doula, you build that relationship. You have longer time to build that relationship and make your plans.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which is wonderful. And then all of a sudden, so you guys are talking every month and getting, the pregnancy is progressing. And then all of a sudden we hear coronavirus. How did this, what did you feel like? What emotions came up when this all started happening?
Well, I mean, it felt like a slow progression until that day where it's sort of like everyone woke up in a different world. And then it was sort of like what happened and everything seemed to be shutting down. And, so that day was definitely stressful. And my reaction was to feel like all of the support systems that I had put in place to make it easier on me to go through labor and delivery, but also to become a new parent, I felt like all of this had been just thrown out the window. And everyone around me, who obviously was going through their own stresses, because, it was a difficult situation for everybody, whether you were pregnant or not. And so everyone's reaction around me was to sort of come to my level and be like, oh my God, like, I don't know how you're coping, and not helping me at all. Like, obviously wanting to empathize, but just sort of confirming that I was right to freak out.
Yes. We were all freaking out, Jessica. I mean, at all levels of anyone working in birth, because for many of you watching, the hospitals were every day, there were new protocols and changing. And one day it was all of a sudden doulas could not come to births, right? And then but some hospitals were letting them, and some doulas were through the back door, and some hospitals knew the security guard and they could get past. And that was like tuck, tuck, tuck. Every day we were chatting on boards and wondering what was happening. Then we saw that one hospital, okay, no doulas, no doulas, no doulas. The same thing. So then it became, I would say, more stable until the Jewish General Hospital here in Montreal decided to not allow partners. And that, I think, was another big step in people's thought processes, you know, that, oh my gosh, at least I could have my spouse. And then there was this, you know, this protocol that spouses were not allowed in. Now, you were not at the Jewish, you were at the Shin.
Yeah.
But were you worried that this would be, you know, become part of the protocol for you?
Yeah, I was really, honestly, it makes me emotional just thinking back on it, because it was definitely the height of the stress. And I really want to say that coming back to Mika, like the constant throughout this, basically when COVID hit up until the news from the Jewish, where it was just like, it felt like the worst it could get for me. And Mika was the only one who really made me realize that nothing had changed really. Like obviously it was different, but you know, in terms of me having that support system around me, like she was really the one who made me realize that everyone who wanted to be there for me was still going to be there for me. Mika was still going to be there for me. It was just going to look different. And all I needed to do was reframe what that was going to look like, but that it wasn't true that all of a sudden I was on my own, that I would have no support system. And so I was really able to, you know, take a step back and realize that, like, okay, I'm going to be okay. And really, it's true. Like now looking back on it, that, you know, my expectations were met on the most part. Like, it's just that it really didn't look like what I thought it was going to look like. And still now being a new parent, the support I get is very different, but it's still there as much as I was expecting it to be. And so, and on that day when there was the Jewish news hit, and that was definitely the day I had lost all perspective. I was like definitely freaking out. And Mika, once again, like my first reflex was to contact Mika and try to sort this out with her. And once again, she was able to bring me down at like, okay, let's put our thinking cap on and we're going to find a solution. And no matter what, you still have access to a beautiful birth story. And so she was always able to bring me back down and make me realize that, you know, what I wanted was still accessible to me.
Right.
And that made a huge difference.
So important. Mika, I think we've talked many times about how this relates to birth, how the COVID, living in this unknown, is very related to birth.
Yeah, and navigating through that and knowing that even when we don't know what's going to happen tomorrow, we still have things that we can control. And I think, Jessica, over the months working with you, I really got to know you and to understand what's important for you to feel safe and calm. And that was really helpful for me when you reached out to me to know what you needed in that moment of uncertainty where the world was turning upside down.
Well, all of a sudden, you know, we say, oh, shoot, what the birth that I planned is, it can't happen. It can't happen. Like people are saying, we can't have a doula anymore because, you know, you can't be there. And then we're realizing, oh my gosh, so much of what we do is, yes, it's partly the physical part, but so much more. So what I'm hearing, Jessica and Mika, is that preparation to get you into the mindset of all the possibilities that could still happen for your birth. Right.
Yeah.
And for your spouse as well, I would imagine. Right. Because now your spouse was allowed at your birth, thank gosh. And the Jewish General, everyone who's birthing there, that you are now allowed to bring your, you know, one support person. How did that change for Jerry now, your spouse? Let's talk, Mika. How did you prepare Jerry to be the main support person?
So first I need to say about Jerry that he's so enthusiastic and so involved that it was really fun to support him to get into the physical. So the pressure points and the hip squeezes and the massage. And I remember one time during the labor, he just jumped up. I'm ready. What do I need to do? And that energy was amazing. And we basically, as your support team, Jerry and I were able to be there hands-on together. So that
Let's talk about that, Mika, because we're saying hands-on. Jerry was hands-on. What does that look like? People are telling me, Sylvia, I want a doula, but I'm not going to be on the phone, virtual support. I'm not going to be on FaceTime for like 5 hours with you. Jessica, was it like that, like virtual support? What was that? What did that mean for you? What happened?
Well, I think obviously we weren't on the phone for 5 hours. And like it's hard to understand if you haven't gone through labor, but there's definitely like key moments in yes, labor is long, but there's definitely key moments in labor where you'll know right away, like, okay, that's a moment where I could benefit from the support of my doula, and it makes sense to, dial her in or whatever technology you're using to have that support. And so there's that. And I think, it's also, as Mika said, there's a true partnership between the doula and the partner, and hopefully you're able to, build that relationship and be as inclusive of your partner, because that will just make it easier. If he has that relationship already with the doula, then it's easy for him or her to step in and just play that role. And so, yeah, that's what it looked like. It didn't feel like sort of like a added responsibility that I had to dial her in. And I would also say that, because Mika and I started working together so early on in my pregnancy, there's a lot of work that to sort of set the table for my labor that we had already done together. And so even when she wasn't on the phone with me, all the lessons and sort of like the guiding principles that she had shared with me were with me throughout the entire process. And so even if she wasn't on the phone, I still could go back to them easily. And so that also made a huge difference. So you have to see it more as a holistic thing, and your doula and is there with you even when she's not, there with you. So yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. And how did that play out for you, Mika? What is virtual support? I believe you both met once in person before for a prenatal. All right.
We had that opportunity before March 13th, where everything changed. We met at your house, Jessica, and then we had to go on Zoom. So we did our second prenatal through Zoom. And then because of everything that was going on, we had some more chats. We did some more FaceTimes. We took the time that was needed to really see that all the bases were covered, basically, which is really important for me, to know that you feel that you are ready and that you can step into this with confidence into giving birth. So that was before. And during, basically, I stay at home when I'm on call and I know that somebody's in labor, so I can jump into my room, close the door, and be available right at that moment. Because during labor, I'm available at any time of the day, any time of the night, whatever you need. You can call me, FaceTime me. Part of what we did was I was there to really talk you through some sensations, some contractions, to give you some key tools to get through some of the intensity that was showing up at one point. Another one was really with Jerry. We went through lots of different techniques, and we were constantly in dialogue with you, Jessica, to know how it was feeling for you. So Jerry could keep on going with these things and all the time checking in with you, Jessica, to see what supported you best. And then in key moments of interventions, you basically
when things are proposed, if the hospital wants to do something, or definitely. Now, Jessica, a lot of us we haven't been to the hospital during all of this time, and a lot of people are worried about. We're creating stories, our imaginations go wild, and we're saying we hear all of these, horror stories about the hospitals right now. what was it like for you on the birth ward at the SHUM?
Yeah, I can definitely understand where the fear is coming from. I mean, what we read in the media is just horrible right now, and no one would want to be at the hospital right now. And so I was very apprehensive and, had the expectation that it would just be like a circus when I would get there, and that the team would be understaffed, and, but obviously things are different in the sense that there's precautions that have been put in place that wouldn't be there normally. So, there are things that remind you that things aren't normal right now. But in terms of the support and the attention that I got, I had a wonderful experience, and it definitely did not feel like anything was rushed or that I was getting a lesser service because they weren't, having the capacity to give me the level of service and care that they would normally. So I really left feeling like, they had given me like all the attention and care that they normally would have. And, no one seemed more stressed out, or I just had like a really extremely positive experience at the hospital. And I think it's important, once you get there, to sort of surrender to the situation, like in the sense that I now understand how important it is to trust your team. And so I think that if the whole time you're waiting for something bad to happen, then that's obviously not putting you in the right headspace, especially for birth. And so I think that, when we got there, I sort of had to be like, okay, well, that's the situation. I'm surrendering to the situation, and just have faith that these people have your best interests at heart, and they really do. So, for me, I have nothing bad to say about that. So just have faith that it's going to be okay.
And that's wonderful to hear, because a lot of the moms to be are worried. We're worried because we are hearing the horror stories, and that's very comforting, Jessica, to know. And it doesn't surprise me, because we have amazing teams in all the hospitals, in all of Montreal, right? I mean, everyone has heard a traumatic and dramatic story that will still happen, whether it's COVID or not COVID. Birth has a way of surprising us, but to hear that you were well taken care of, and that your wishes were respected. Now, you did a lot of preparation, however, to warrant, that respect, and digging into what you want, and how, you're not afraid to ask questions. And I think that came about with all of the months of preparation, and knowing what to ask. And you did have Mika right there when those key interventions were about to happen, or they're proposing things to you. You could at least chat with her.
Yeah, and remind you of informed consent, which is big during labor.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I will say that, when we were released from the hospital, they gave me back my birth plan, which I won't go into the details of my birth, but literally nothing went according to plan.
Oh no! Jessica, probably you took my prenatal classes with me, and most likely I said something to the effect that we will make a lovely plan together. We will, but your baby and the universe will take over, and instead of going left, it will go right, and it will go around 3 million times before it lands on.
Exactly. But I think it, I also, it was a good lesson in understanding that the power of a birth plan is really just gaining understanding of what it is to be an advocate of yourself, and what are the options out there, and exploring different scenarios. So it's not going in expecting that this is how things are going to go. That's not the power of a birth plan. So, I wouldn't have had that lesson if my birth plan had actually unfolded like I wanted it to. It didn't. So that's what I got from it. So.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. And I think we are strong advocates of creating that birth plan, but like you said, talking about your different options, you and your spouse, right? I mean, I call them birth wishes. It's how do we envision our birth? Now, of course, no one envisioned their birth during the time of COVID, and that does add some challenges to birthing people. And if you do have signs of COVID, That is another, and if your partner does as well, that is another layer of complexity. Definitely. Mika, what was lost my train of thought there. Postpartum support, how does that, because Jessica, you came home starting to feed baby, what is that after birth support looking like for the two of you?
Go ahead, Mika, if you, I'll jump in after.
So instead of the in-person visits that we usually offer, right now it's a lot of virtual support. And both, I think, Jessica, we had a very meaningful time spending talking about your birth. And maybe you can talk to that more than me, and how that experience was for you, if you'd like.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Sylvia, I remember when I took the prenatal classes with you, that you had mentioned at some point that about birth, that it was just a day, and you had said this, so casually, and it really stuck with me, because I was like, what do you mean it's just a day? Like, it seems like the most like intense thing, and it is intense, like there's no way around it, but it also is just a day. And so now being on the other side, I do realize that a lot of the support that you need also is so much like leading up to it, but also afterwards, like being able to like process becoming a new parent, but also processing like what that day meant to you and how it unfolded, and whether it went well or not, and all that stuff. And so to have that support postpartum also made a huge difference, because in my case, my birth was still successful in the sense that I have a healthy baby, I'm healthy, but it definitely took me by surprise in the way that it unfolded. And so to be able to, hash this out with Mika, and sort of, and she really, everyone around me was trying to put a positive spin on it. And I think that's just a defensive mechanism. Like it comes from a good place, but to be given this space to, just to experience the feelings that you want to experience about your birth that aren't necessarily, seen as productive or positive by other people. Like, I think that goes a long way. So, especially now with COVID, that we're, sort of our circles are a lot smaller than they used to be. And obviously we can have virtual conversations, but some conversations are, harder to get into virtually. And so to have that relationship with my doula, and to be able to, get in the thick of it really like organically, made a huge difference for me. And so I'm really grateful that I had that.
That makes it's such a valid and lovely point, Jessica. I think, the postpartum, yes, the birth is super important, but now with the COVID, I think the postpartum becomes more challenging.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because our village is a virtual village for many of us. And I have clients now calling saying, my mom was supposed to come from India. My mom was supposed to come from the States, and she can't come now.
Yeah.
I'm going to be by myself, and the lack of sleep, and my husband's still working. He'll take a bit of time off, but all of these different challenges. And we know, Mika and I've had children, we know how critical those weeks are. So having your doula, I think, we are definitely sounding boards. We are there. You can cry with us. There's no, we don't want you to come on and say everything's going well. And when it isn't, right? So it's an added resource. That doesn't have the same ties as, say, family does.
Exactly.
Right?
More neutral.
Much more neutral. And I had someone say yesterday, call me saying, Sylvia, I need to speak with you. I just need an objective ear. I need your objectivity, because we're just like spiraling here. And I'm like, that's definitely it.
And I want to say one more word about the postpartum support, about breastfeeding. I think that was a big part of where I chimed in with you, Jessica, is a lot of those early days with learning how to latch, both you and baby. And we had quite a few back and forth. If you want to say a few words about that, Jessica, that would be great as well.
Yeah, I think that also made a world of a difference, because I had heard from pretty much everyone around me who has had children that breastfeeding was so hard. And so I was really bracing myself for a world of pain, to be honest, because I had heard that it was just so painful, and like eventually would get better, but that it would be really hard before it got better, you know? So, but luckily for me, I mean, breastfeeding is, there's always a learning curve. Like you can't go get around it, but you know, from the day one to have that support from someone who actually is their area of expertise, and not like, no, obviously the support of other moms like is important, but you know, if there's a difference between getting the support from someone who's made a career out of it and from someone who's only basing themselves on their previous experience with their own baby. And so for me, that also made breastfeeding so much smoother than I was anticipating it to be. So that was a pleasant surprise. And also you know, once again, having someone to talk to, because breastfeeding at the beginning is so overwhelming and time consuming. And so just to be told that it will get better and here's how it can get better. And so, so that was a really crucial support for me. So,
well, encouraging. And what does that look like, Mika? Just for the, you know, we've got some listeners watching here, and what does that look like? Or do you have the camera on your boobs, or like how does?
Oh yeah, right in there.
How is that?
Get right in there.
You get right in there. Okay, if you're willing, if you are willing.
Of course, but I think that when you're breastfeeding, you just want to get that latch, you want to figure out that deep latch, and you are willing to show your doula through FaceTime. You know, your partner gets in those angles that can really.
And just to see, because we can tell if a baby's latching on well. And I think the lactation consultants, they're doing virtual support as well.
Of course, yeah.
Through video.
And if needed, we refer to the lactation consultants. But in Jessica's case, it wasn't. So it was, you know, as doulas, we can often help to a certain extent. And I think it made a huge difference at the beginning to have someone around that you can just call in. This is happening. What do I do with the clogged ducts? What's up? What's my next step? How do I avoid getting mastitis?
And Jessica, how is this, before we close here? How, you know, your village, like you were saying, you know, you don't have those mommy meetups perhaps that you were planning. I mean, baby's still young, baby's old, but how is this time, you know, manifesting itself for you?
It's going well, honestly. But I think what made a big difference, and I think, you know, I had some time like in COVID land, like before I gave birth. So I think that made a difference compared to if it had happened like right after I had given birth. But I think because it's becoming more and more clear that, you know, we're going to be in this situation for a while. And so I think I just, once again, it comes to the notion of like surrendering to the situation. And so I think that I just had to be like, listen, like what you thought it was going to be like. And also, you know, there's so many layers to that, like me not being able to introduce my first child to my family, and like this, you know, there's so many like layers to that and things that you have to mourn but I think that once you commit to the situation and then you surrender to it and you try to see, okay, within those boundaries, like what does normal look like for me? What does happy look like for me? What does supported look like for me? And you're going to be able to find those answers. So I think that once I stopped being on the edge of my chair, waiting for things to go back to normal, it took a huge weight off my shoulders. And so I think because of that, things are going really well.
Oh, wonderful. Wonderful. That's such a, yes, I like that. You know, this is our new normal. Let's not wait for things to go back to what they were. How can we look forward? And in this moment, what can we do?
Exactly.
That is wonderful. Very powerful message for all of our listeners. Jessica, any last words for our moms to be who are listening in terms of preparing for their births?
Yeah, I just wanted to add also that, you know, I know whether, like for everyone, when you're weighing whether to partner with a doula or not, there's always some financial consideration that goes into it. And so I actually did not know that going into it, but I was pleasantly surprised to find out that I could get an insurance receipt for it. And so I think it's important, if, you know, because if this is something that's holding back a mom from getting that really, really valuable support, then please don't let that hold you back, and just know that, you know, there's a way to make it more financially accessible to you.
Yeah, for those who do have access to insurance, and if not, you can always chat with us, and we can look at some other options. But yes, and I think going forward, right now things have stabilized in terms of the hospital protocols. We're hoping that doulas will be allowed back in the birthing room. We just don't know when that will be. So for now, we're continuing our virtual classes online, in person. We have virtual doula services. We have various packages as well, and postpartum services. Mika, any last words for our listeners?
Maybe on the note of creating our village, every Thursday at 1, we have our virtual mommy group. And it would be great if you already have a little one at home and you're looking to connect with other moms, that you join us there, because community, even when it's virtual, it makes a difference when we can talk to others who are going through similar experiences. So that's something that we offer weekly, and it would be great to get more people to join. So yeah, it's all about support. It's
all about support and staying connected.
Yeah, and staying connected.
Well, congratulations again, Jessica.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy that we had this chat, and we're going to share this everywhere, because let's bring it back down to what it is, what is happening, and how we can adapt and change our expectations, and plan for a beautiful birth and a beautiful postpartum. And we're here to meet us. Yes. Mika? Hello? Am I frozen? Jessica?
No, I can hear you.
Okay, well, Mika can. So we're just going to end there, because I can't hear Mika anymore.
But can you hear me now?
Ahead. I can hear you now.
Okay. I think maybe that's another thing that happens here. If somebody puts on the microwave in my house, then
there we go.
Internet, my Wi-Fi is not.
You froze there. You froze there for a second. I was just saying goodbye, but if you have last words, if you wanted to add anything. Are we good?
I just want to. Yeah, we're great, Jessica. Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
And reach out if you need us. We're always here. Thank you for listening, and we'll catch you on the next episode. Bye, everyone. Have a great weekend.